वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Namaste and a hearty welcome to one and all for today's 11th session of our series Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. January 30th is Mahatma Gandhi's Punyatithi. About Mahatma Gandhi, everyone us are aware of. Let us remember him on this day and pray for our country, which has been and was his dream. Today, in the concluding verses 70 and 72 of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, that is Sankhya Yoga, shall be presented by Dr. Timmappa Hegde and Srimati Chetana. They will be talking about the topic how an enlightened one, even though they are continually exposed, bombarded with objects of desire, as we all see on billboards, print media, TV, etc., they still remain unmoved and attain peace. Having attained such a state, the enlightened one is liberated from this cycle of birth and death. Srimati Sharmila Bhaktaram, Dr. Jagdish, and Dr. Ravi Shankar shall present verses 1 to 3 of chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Here, having listened to the Lord explaining two paths of knowledge and path of action, Arjuna asks why he is being guided to fight a terrible war and prays to Bhagavan to guide him to the correct path to attain the highest goal. Let us start today's session with a brief introduction to the day's topic by Dr. Komal, who shall be moderating today's session also. Dr. Komal, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. We are seeing the last end portion of chapter 2, and in this today's session we are going to see the last few verses of chapter 2, and we'll be starting the chapter 3. So in the last portion of chapter 2, the topic is about Sthita Prajna Lakshana. Lord Krishna is explaining Arjuna, his actual original question was, how does Sthita Prajna act? How will he perform his duties in this mortal world? So for that, Sri Krishna explains briefly about Sthita Prajna Sadhanani also, and again in the end, the last 4 verses, again he comes back to mention about what are the Sthita Prajna Lakshanani. So in this we see an important verse today is about what is called Brahmi Sthiti. What's that state of Brahmi Sthiti? Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuchyate. So this is what we are going to see today. So in psychology, there's a word called flow, a concept called flow, in which a person who is doing an action will get to a state of heightened awareness, in which the differentiation between the action and the awareness of the person ceases to exist. Action and awareness melts together. That depends on the level of skill required for an action and the challenge the work imposes on the person, on the doer. Like it may be solving a Rubik's Cube, playing violin, or driving a car. Initially, when you're starting to drive a car, there will be a period of the challenge will be more and your skill level will be low. So then there will be a kind of worry and anxiety. But as you proceed further and you graduate to the higher level of driving, so your driving becomes smooth and you will be able to do even enjoy music as you're driving. That's the state of arousal. Whereas when in a busy traffic, when the challenge of the road traffic is also significant, and you're driving to reach a destination with some predetermined work, so that's when the challenge is also high, and your skill set is also high. That's when you reach a stage of heightened awareness in which you reach a state called a flow, in which you will feel a sense of peace, security, and a kind of happiness. And it's a sort also a sort of addiction in which you will want to get into that stage again and again. Some of the performers, musicians will want to reach that stage. You give everything in this world to them. They will not let go of that experience of reaching to that stage. This is what the work, doing something can lead you to the maximum. So this is in a way we can say is glimpse, a jhalak of Brahmi Sthiti. What happens in this Brahmi Sthiti is it's like what are the other stages in which we get into a kind of heightened awareness, where the action of the doer as well as the awareness of the doer melts into a common pool and that person does not exist. Here Krishna says it's a sthiti, it's a state. The person ceases to exist at that point. And that's where, when somebody reaches there, he gets into that sort of merging with the self, merging with Brahman. So, in deep sleep, if you're also in some effect of some medications or drugs, even that will get you to that level of heightened awareness. As Swami Anubhavananda mentions in some of the Panchadashi talks, it takes to that level. But what's the flaw here? The flaw here is that it is not permanent. You'll get back from that state into your normal livelihood. So, but here what Krishna is talking about of that Brahmi Sthiti, into which when you reach, when you attain, there is no coming back. Naina prapya vimukshate. Vimuhyate. So that's the stage in which there's a point of no return. That's the Brahmi Sthiti Krishna is talking about. In the next slide, we can see the same thing continues. It also happens when you are cooking for the first time, doing dosa for the first time, how you reach that stage in which you're so much concentrated to make a crisp dosa, or you're threading a needle, or even for in my practical experience, doing a complex neurosurgical procedure, where few millimeters is the difference between a catastrophic disaster which can happen. So these are the states of heightened awareness, which is called a flow. And when we see this, we can get to the fundamental equation of what we are looking at. We are looking at an ultimate truth. And the objects, the verbs we have is being and doing. Okay, we have to, as Sir many times says, before you see, you have to be. So being is about the object and doing is the verb, what you do, action. Being is more about awareness and doing is more about the action. So here in the next initial few verses, Krishna is asked by Arjuna about his doubt which arises because Krishna is constantly, repeatedly stressing the point of importance of Jnana Yoga. But he says here that you have to do and go ahead with this war and do the Karma Yoga. So Arjuna is confused. That part we'll be seeing today. And he asks, tell me in the clearest possible way, what should I do? Should I follow Karma Yoga or should I follow Jnana Yoga? For this, Bhagavan will explain by telling there are two kinds of people in this world. Lokasmin dvivida nishta pura prokta maya naga gnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So both aspects will touch. What's the difference between Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga? And Shankaracharya in his Bhashya mentions very clearly. His contention is that both the yogas are required for all the seekers, but they have to be done in a sequential manner. It's not to be done simultaneously. It's impossible to do simultaneously if you take it in the strictest sense. A person has to be a karma yogi initially, and as a karma yogi, he is called a yogi. The format that he uses is what we generally mention by taking Swami Paramatmananda's teaching is a triangular format, that I am a jiva and I am confronting the Jagat, and Ishvara is my refuge. And he looks upon himself as a seeker of moksha, and he looks upon all his karmas as his own sadhana towards moksha. Jiva confronting Jagat with the blessings of Ishvara. That's the triangular format. So that's the mumuksha bhavana of a karma yogi. And all karmas are for sadhana, for moksha for him. And moksha is a sadhya, it's a distant goal where he is to reach. And sakama bhakti is still there, it's reduced significantly, but it is still there because the bhakti is only for attainment of moksha. So he's a yogi. And what is the next step? It's inevitable. Swami Paramatmananda says it's inevitable that you will have to jump to the other format, which is called a binary format. Nitya Mukta Bhavana, where all karmas are sadhanas only for Lokakshema, Loka Sangrahartha. Moksha is a siddha, it's already accomplished. And Sakama Bhakti is totally renounced. That is the Sankhya Buddhi mindset. It follows a binary format. Repeatedly, we see what is this triangular format and binary format. Pravritti Marga and Nivritti Marga. So I will explain with this model what is this triangular format. This is a regular triangle which I have cut out from a piece of paper. Ishvara is here, Jiva, Jagat. Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. This is the triangular format of a Karma Yogi. Where can we fit in the binary format here? What will happen to these three entities when we jump into the binary format? This surface is Anatma, and the other surface is Atma. This is the binary format. When you shift, moving in this triangle on the borders of this triangle to the surface where actual play starts, the Jnani, the Jnana Yogi, is able to shift seamlessly between this surface to this surface at the click of a button, at the click of a second, at his own thought, at the speed of thought, he can move from here to here, from this thing, what the Vyavaharika world to Paramarthika world. All the three are still there, but the substratum of that is the Atma, the Brahman, which is holding this, which is holding the entire play which is happening. So this is the binary format. These three are there, but irrelevant for a Jnana Yogi for his reveling in his green room when he goes out of the play. But when he is acting in this world, he is actor like anybody else. He is having all this. He is Sevaka, and there is a Ishvara who is blessing him. Everything is there. But for him, in his innermost level, there are no special prayers. He knows that whatever needs to happen will happen. And he can just jump into the green room of Paramarthika world whenever he wants. This is the binary format. So this is the clear distinction between how to jump from a triangular format to binary format, which is very difficult to understand. So the Karma Yogi follows the triangular format, and the Jnana Yogi follows the binary format. And it's inevitable that a Karma Yogi, a person wishing moksha, has to initially start with the Karma Yoga and then jump to a binary format of a Jnana Yogi. So with this introductory words, we will go to today's topics, how Swami Paramarthananda explains about these concluding verses of second chapter as well as the initial part of third chapter, along with parts from Shankara Bhashya. And this particular portion of Gita, Shankara Bhashya, Swami Paramarthananda has taken about 10 classes to explain, in about 10 to 12 hours duration. Very extensive to understand the clear pathway towards what Shankaracharya means when he says it has to be followed. The Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, both are important and they are mandatory and they have to go through one after the other. So we'll go through these topics one by one from now. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Apuryamanam achalam achala pratishtam samudra apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kamakami. You will immediately notice there is a change in the meter. It is no longer in Anustup Chandas. The moment there is a change in the meter, it should alert our attention to a certain important verse. This is one of the concluding verses of the Sthita Prajna portion. And as these verses are in words are in Sanskrit, let us get the word-to-word meaning. Sarve kamaha, all sense objects, pravishanti yam, enter him, tadvat yadvat, just as apaha pravishanti, as the waters enter, apuryamanam, the full, achala pratishtam samudram, the calm seas, calm ocean, sa apnoti shantim, he attains peace, na kamakami, not a seeker of sense objects. So the literal meaning is, in this verse, the verse 70, three important states of a jnani, one who is a sthita prajna, are purnam, swatantra, and samatva. The literal translation of this important 70th verse is this: just as the waters enter into the ocean from all directions, and yet is unaffected, yet the ocean is unaffected, in the same way, even as all sense objects enter a spiritually evolved person, he remains undisturbed and is in peace. However, this is not so for one who desires sense objects. This is one more example of a Sthita Prajna, where a Sthita Prajna is compared to an ocean. The ocean is always full, always Purna. The fullness of the ocean does not depend on any external factors like the arrival of waters from the rivers or because of rain. The ocean is independent or swatantra. In the same manner, a jnani's mind is atmanevatmana tushtaha, is completely full regardless of any external situation. And this is the answer given to Arjuna's question, Sthita Prajna ka bhasha. And the example is, can we be like an ocean? In the previous verse, there was a nice example between a jnani and an ajnani. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagriti samyami. Now here we saw how a jnani sees the world and how an ajnani sees the world, and there is a day-night difference. Here, the comparison between a person who is spiritually evolved can be compared to that of an ocean, which is independent, which is full, compared to a person who is not so evolved, can be like a pond. The Sanskrit word for the Pacific Ocean is Shanta Samudra. And the word Pacific itself means peaceful. And the ocean, or a jnani, demonstrates three characteristics. Swatantra, a person is independent. What do you mean independent? As a body, we are dependent. But from a psychological angle, from an emotional angle, a person is not dependent on persons, situations, or objects for his peace, security, or happiness. And being swatantra, such a person is samatvam. That means even in disturbing situations, the person does not get disturbed. He may wade through various sensory stimuli. All kinds of sensory inputs may come to such a person, but such a person is in equipoise or in samatvam, is not disturbed, because such a person is in a state of purnatvam. When we studied Panchadashi, chapter 7, Tripti Deepa, we discussed about the desire in a jnani compared to an ajnani. A person who is not spiritually evolved has desires. And these desires are basically because of avidya. I do not know my true nature. And because I do not know my true nature, a desire arises in my mind, that if I am able to accomplish that, then I will be purna, I will be complete. And therefore, the all our karma is based on karma. So there is the grandfather is avidya, the father is karma, and karma is action. So the action is brought about by avidya and karma. However, for a jnani may have desires, and this was very nicely brought out by Vidyaranya Swami. And how do these desires come for a person who is a Purna Purusha? He is complete, multidimensionally complete. But such persons can have various forms of desires because of various prarabdha vasanas. But these desires do not disturb the person's peace for one particular reason, because a person is not, these are not binding desires. And as these are not binding desires, even though desires arise in the mind of a jnani, a person is not affected by such desires. So in conclusion, to that question Arjuna asked, Sthita Prajna Ka Bhasha, and this is a personal test for us. Have I got these qualities? And in this concluding verse, I would like to bring in one very important point to see, have I moved from the triangular format of Jiva Jagat Ishvara, to the binary format. Now, this is a great jump. A jnani has moved from the triangular format. In the triangular format, I wake up as an individual, as a jiva. I see myself incomplete. I see the world that is tormenting me, and therefore I pray to Ishvara to be protected from all the difficulty. But as explained by Dr. Komal in the beginning of this talk, the moment spiritual wisdom comes in, I realize that I am not this body mind, but I am Atma. And as Atma, I am complete. And therefore, I don't have to be worried about the world. And therefore, one index is, remember this, no special prayers. Whenever there is a special prayer, it indicates I am still in the triangular format. Any special prayer strengthens ahankara and mamakara, and it accentuates raga and dvesha. So one of the indicators is to minimize or avoid special prayers. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As we have seen from verses 69 to 72, Krishna goes back to the topic of Sthita Prajna Lakshanani, about one who is established in spiritual wisdom. This verse is the concluding one, where Krishna says, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapya Vimivayati Sthitva Syam Antakale Api Brahma Nirvanam Richati. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. This state of Brahman, this is the state of Brahman achieved, O Arjuna, where na enam prapya vimuyati. Once a person attains this state of mind, then there is no falling back into samsara. And how long will he enjoy the state of mind? Asyam sthitva antakale api. He enjoys the state of mind of Jivan Mukti as long as he lives, as long as there is prarabdham. And after that, he attains Brahma Nirvanam Richati. He will attain Videha Mukti, or oneness with Brahman. Now, how can we achieve this state of mind, or this Brahmi Sthiti? For this, we must go back to Krishna's teaching, specifically verses 12 to 25. Brahmi Sthiti is born out of a thorough understanding of Vedanta. Without this Vedantic knowledge or Atma Jnanam, we cannot accomplish this. The Jnani, once he attains this Brahmi state, never slides back to samsara. He enjoys life until he exhausts his prarabdha. After that, he attains moksha, and he will be out of this birth and death cycle. This state is called the Brahmi state, or the Sthita Prajna, or even Jivan Mukti. So let us briefly revisit Krishna's teaching. Verses 12 to 25 is the central theme of the second chapter, since it has the essence of all the Upanishads. Here, Krishna discusses the essential nature of the individual, Jiva Swarupam. Who am I? He shows that an individual is not the body-mind complex. It is just a medium of transaction, an instrument. So if I am not the body, mind, sense complex, then who am I? Krishna reveals that you are the consciousness principle, the Atma. This is your true nature. So in verses 12 to 25, he talks about the 6 main features of this Atma, which we must keep in mind all the time. Atma is Nitya, it is Satya, Atma is Sarvagataha, it is Aprameyaha, it is Akarta and Abhokta, and it is Nirvikaraha. We should learn to claim this Atma as myself and to look upon the body-mind as an incidental instruments. Knowing the Atma and claiming the Atma as myself is Jnana Yoga, and it is a permanent remedy for all problems, is Krishna's promise. A guru and Shastras can give you this knowledge, but converting this intellectual knowledge into emotional strength, we must do it ourselves by assimilating and understanding and practicing this knowledge. A guru can only convert one from ajnana to prajna, but he cannot convert from prajna to sthira prajna. That effort the shishya must do on his own. Now, how to convert this intellectual study of the Gita into emotional strength? What discipline should I practice to become a sthira prajna? Krishna prescribes 3 disciplines. Indriya nigraha, sense mastery. Keep it in mind that it is mastery over the senses and not suppression. Second is mano nigraha, thought discipline. The arrival of thoughts is not under our control, but whether to perpetuate these thoughts or not is under our control. And the final discipline is nididhyasana, dwelling upon this teaching as often as possible. Now, once I have assimilated this knowledge, then what transformation will it bring about? First is Purnatvam, freedom from binding desires born out of self-sufficiency. I have only preferences and non-binding desires. Second important change we see is Samatvam, or equanimity of mind. I enjoy peace despite ups and downs in life. In conclusion, who is a sthira prajna or a brahmi sthiti? He is a person who has successfully gone through karma yoga and jnana yoga, gained self-knowledge that I am the Atma, I am not this body and mind. He has converted his intellectual knowledge into emotional strength. A person with such a state of mind is called a brahmi sthiti, a sthira prajna. With this, Krishna concludes the 2nd chapter called the Sankhya Yoga. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavatsu Upanitsatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiya Yo Adhyaya. Oh Hari Om. Thank you.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 3.1 is a question asked by Arjuna to Sri Krishna as he is confused with the teachings. The question is based on Lord Krishna's teachings in chapter 2. Let us see what Arjuna is confused about and why he is confused. In verse 2.11, Lord Krishna says that wise men do not grieve. He stresses that wisdom is the only solution for grief. From this, we can infer that ignorance is the cause of grief. Ajnanat dukam, jnanat sukham. Ignorance causes sorrow. Knowledge gives freedom from sorrow. Lord Krishna emphasizes that jnanam or self-knowledge is the only medicine for sorrow and delusion. All these are Arjuna's problems too. So Arjuna thinks that he should opt for jnanam. As you can see in the next slide, jnanam is emphasized in the start and end of chapter 2. And in the middle, Lord Krishna talks about karma yoga, which is right action and right attitude. So Arjuna is confused whether to follow karma yoga or jnana yoga. Arjuna wants to avoid karma as it is going to be very traumatic to fight his kith and kin. But he remembers Krishna's advice to do his duty as a warrior. Because Krishna glorified Jnanam but is now asking him to do karma, Arjuna feels that Krishna is a confusing teacher. In the next slide, we see Lord Krishna. Let us see if Lord Krishna has really confused Arjuna or not. Arjuna thinks that there is an option between Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. But Lord Krishna has very clearly explained that Karma Yoga makes you fit for Jnana Yoga. It is a preparatory sadhana. There is no choice between the two. Swami Paramatmananda ji explains that Arjuna has not grasped this because of his filtered listening. Hence, Arjuna compares Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga and thinks Jnana Yoga is superior and wants to opt for it. So, we now know that Sri Krishna has not confused him but advised Arjuna to do Karma Yoga and then Jnana Yoga. His advice is act, purify, know, and be free. Arjuna adopts selective listening as he wants to escape karma. Based on his selective listening and hence incorrect comprehension, Arjuna asks the question in verse 3.1. Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani gore mam niyojayasi keshava. So Arjuna asks, O Krishna, if self-knowledge is considered by you to be superior to action, then why do you engage me in this cruel action, O Krishna? The word meanings go like this. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna asked, Janardana, O Krishna, chet, if, buddhi matete, self-knowledge is considered by you, jayasi karmanaha, to be superior to action, tat, then, kim niyojayasi mam, why do you engage me? Gore karmani, in this cruel action, Keshava, O Krishna. This question arises because of Arjuna's faulty listening and grasping. But Sri Krishna is a great and noble teacher. He does not question Arjuna for not listening properly. As Swami Paramatmananda ji says, Sri Krishna listens to the question as if it were a new and intelligent one and begins the teaching all over again and elaborately explains Karma Yoga in chapter 3. Thank you.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. At this juncture, the twofold emphasis about Gnanam and Karma has placed Arjuna in a dilemma. And he's in a hurry and so appeals to Krishna, tell me the one definite discipline, path of action or the path of knowledge, as this slide shows. Because the aim of Arjuna is to reach full spiritual unfoldment. But however, with total Vinaya, Arjuna says, I seem to have understood wrongly, Krishna, your contradictory statements. Krishna, I am not rejecting what you are teaching me, but requesting for clarity and guidance. My duvidha is glorifying knowledge, but asking me to do karma. Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim moyastve tadekam vada nischitya ena shreyo hamapnuyayam. Now Arjuna says, your statements are clear, but my confusion is, if Gnana Yoga is the direct means of liberation, why are you instructing me to follow Karma Yoga? My aim is liberation. Ekam vada nishchityayena. Tell me one correct method to me. Now let's come to the Bhashyam. Next slide, sir. Vyamishrena iva yadyapi vivikta bidhai Bhagavan tathapi mama manda buddhihe Vyamishram iva bhagavad vakyam pratibhati. Trying to study the Bhashyam. Next slide, sir. While not commenting on the first two words, Vyamishrena iva, which means mixing up, Shankaracharya is looking into the thought process of Arjuna. And so, Yadyapi Vivikta Abhidhayi, you are a clear communicator, Krishna, but Tathapi Manamanda Buddhihe, my intellect is dull. And so I'm asking for more clarity. And he continues. Next slide, sir. Your motive and intention is Mama mama buddhi vyamoha apanyaya, to remove my delusion. Katham mohayasi, how can you confuse me? Now, moving on to the phrase Tat ekam vada, Arjuna thinks as a next slide, sir. Gnana karmano ekapurusha anushtana asambhavam. He throws up his hands in despair and he says the simultaneous implementation of both the tracks of yoga seems asambhavam to me. Or is it Krishna that I had to learn it from two different gurus? And so, Nishchityavada. Next slide, sir. Next slide. Nishchityavada, tell me clearly, Treya Prapyunam, so that I will have moksha. Now, Shankaracharya brings in Gnana Karma Samuchaya Vada, quoting Sureshacharya ji, Gnana Pradhana and Karma Pradhana. They are complementary and in different proportions. But our warrior Arjuna wants one clear discipline to pursue and feels Tayo Ekam Vada Iti. Next slide, sir. Tayo Ekam Vada Iti. Teach me one yoga. Ubhaya Prapti Asambhavam. How can I learn both from you, Krishna? And also, Nahi Bhagavata Purva Muktam. Krishna, you have not explained to me previously about this. Well, in that Arjuna is wrong, which, however, Krishna will clarify later. So he is in Duvidha again. And what happens? Samuchavada is correct or is it Khandanam? He is sitting on the fence like most of us do. Now, for example, are we Gnana Yogis in class and Karma Yogis in the day-to-day life? Well, is a combination sequential or simultaneous, as Komal suggested in the beginning? So, are we Ubhaya Yogis? Are we just ending up as Ubhaya Brashta? The next sloka 4, Krishna says, and he clarifies as in this slide, Gnana Yoga is knowledge and contemplation, and Karma Yoga is a path of work and devotion. In the next slide, Ravi Shankar will elaborate with the beautiful phrase, Gnana Yogena Sankhyanam and Karma Yogena Yoginam. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Lokesmin Dvividha Nishta Pura Prokta Maya Nagha Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. In the next slide, we understand this is the answer and the beginning of another chapter by Bhagwan Sri Krishna to the questions raised by Arjuna. What do we understand from this very important verse amongst the so many important verses that we come across in the Bhagavad Gita? The role of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, standpoint of sadhana, the standpoint of Jnana Karma Samuchaya Khandanam, whether it is a simultaneous combination or a sequential combination of the Karma and Jnana Yoga, explanation of the types of adhikari. A yogi group follows Karma Yoga alone, and the Sankhya group follows the Jnana Yoga alone, and hence the type of the mindset of these two groups of people. In the next slide, we observe that explanation of this lifestyle, and this is so important. We are on the fence, like what we understood. Which should we follow? And so Sri Krishna says, a Karma Yoga Nishtha is a Atmani Mumukshutva Bhavana. I am a Mumukshu. He feels that Karmasu Sadhanatva Buddhi. I am doing all the Karmanas as a sadhana. He feels that Mokshe Sadhyatva Bhavana. Moksha is something that I have to accomplish. It is a sadhyam. I am a Sakama Bhakta and I do all the pujas as a Sakama Bhakta. And hence he continues to be in the triangular format. Remember, puja is done by both the Karma Yogis and the Jnana Yogis and does not decide the format one is in. In the next slide, we understand Sri Krishna explaining the Jnana Yoga Nishtha. A person who is in a Jnana Yoga Nishtha says Atmani Nitya Mukta Bhavana. This is the Sankhya Buddhi. I am Atman. He understands that there is lokakshema sadharatma buddhi. All the religious and secular actions that I do as karmas is for lokakshema. It is not for my personal benefit. A Jnana Yoga Nishtha further understands that moksha swarupatva bhavana. It is my swarupa. It is not a sadhana. He does nishkama bhakta, which means the sakama bhakta has been completely renounced. He does nishkama puja for loka sangrahartham. And he is in this binary format, which Swami Paramarthananda very clearly explains as no controllership, no anxiety, and no sakama puja or special prayers. As we move on, we understand lokasmin shastra anusthana adhikrit, and we will take the word by word meaning of this bhashya in the next slide. Lokasmin means the world of humanity. Traivarnikaha is the explanation of the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. And we understand that according to the Shastras, the Anusthana Adhikratanam, those who have understood the Veda Pramana with Shraddha and Bhakti, are the people who are the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, explaining that the ones who are the Nastikas, who don't have the Shraddha to the Veda Pramanam, are the Shudras. They have a Nishtha, which is a Sthiti. The Anushtheya Tatparyam is a commitment not to both, but to either of the twofold discipline. And when there is no mamakara and there is a class projection, they have handed over my family and friends and everything in life to Bhagwan. How do we know this? It's because of the Purva Sargadau. At the time of creation itself, the two lifestyles have been explained. The Abhyudhaya, the three Purusharthas of Dharma, Artha, Kama, as well as the fourth Purushartha, which is the Shreyas, Nishreyas, has been a clear understanding through the Vedartha Sampradayam, which is the tradition of the Vedic teachings, consisting of Karma Yoga through Veda Purva and the Jnana Yoga through Vedanta. Sarvagneya Ishwarena. This has been given by the Lord, Bhagwan Sri Krishna himself, who is the omniscient Lord. This is his commitment. He Anagha. Agham means papam and Anagha means the one who is sinless. Dvividha Nishtaha, he explains that there are two types of lifestyles and you have to choose them. In the next slide, we further go to understand that Jnana Yogena Jnanam Eva Yogaha Tena Sankhyanam Atma Anatma Vishaya Viveka Jnanavatam Brahmacharya Ashramad Eva Krita. Sanyasanam Vedanta Vijnana Sunischitarthanam Paramahamsa Parivrajakaanam Brahmani Eva Avishtitanam Nishtha Prokta. Such a clear explanation of what is the Jnana Yoga Marga. So the Jnana Eva Yoga Marga is the spiritual discipline which is in the form of Jnanam. And this Jnanam is the fold mindset, which is the Sankhya Buddhi, which is Sankhyanam, which has been explained in the previous slide. Sri Shankaracharya says, Atma Anatma Viveka Vishaya Jnatva. The one who understands this through a proper teacher as a student of Vedanta, Brahmacharya Ashramad Eva, and who prefers to take sannyasa from the Brahmacharya ashram, which means internal sannyasa as class reception and one who is in a binary format. Such a Vedanta Vijnana Sunischitartha Paramahamsa Parivrajakaryacharya is the Antara Sannyasi. It may be a Bahya Sannyasi, but this is a Antarika Sannyasi. So in the next slide, we understand that Sri Shankaracharya adds a very important word and a very important note that if one has decided to follow the Jnana Yoga mindset, he has to take the Sankhya in his lifestyle and he has to be a Bahya Sannyasi or at least a Antarika Sannyasi. Without the support of Sannyasa, Jnana Yoga mindset cannot be promoted. In the next slide, we further go to understand that the karma yogena karma eva yogaha karma yogatena karma yogena yoginam karminam nishtha prokta iti artaha. So the karma yoga, by the lifestyle of karma yoga, is based on the karma kanda of the Vedas. And karma eva yoga is the karma pradhana people. Karmini, we know this word. Karminam is equal to a grahastha who is bahya antara sannyasa rahitam. He is a grahastha. He has no sannyasa, neither antarika or bahya sannyasi. In the next slide, we further go and see. And this is a very interesting point that comes to Arjuna's mind, and Sri Krishna understands it. So, Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya explains Jnana karma samuchaya na bhavati. Combination of yoga mindset and Sankhya mindset is never possible. Yadi cha ekena purushena ekasmai purusharthya jnanam karma cha samuchitya anushteyam bhagavata ishtam uktam vakshanam va gitasu vedasu cha uktam. So it's such a very important point. Gita Su means all the verses of Gita in some form or the other. Vedasu in all the Vedas, this has been clearly explained that Ekena Purushena, in one person, Ekasmai at any given point of time, to have the Jnana Karma, Samuchaya is not possible. Swayam eva anusthayati. Arjuna by himself understands and he feels all this explanation Sri Krishna is giving for somebody else, but it doesn't mean it that I am going to have only the Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga. Why not I practice Samochaya? And that's why we move on into the next slide, where the understanding is Karma Yoga is an indirect sadhanam. Karma Yoga's phalam is not moksha. Karma Yoga's phalam is Jnana Yoga. And Jnana Yoga's phalam is moksha. Therefore, moksha is the child of Jnana Yoga and moksha is the grandchild of Karma Yoga. Like we enter the temple through many ways, Swami Paramarthananda ji clearly says that the entrance into the Garbhagudi is only through one door, which is Jnana Marga. In the next slide, we further go to see that Tasya cha jnana nishtaya, that superior jnana yoga, which is meant for the selected group of people, which are those who understand and go through the Vedantic classes and have bahya sannyasa or antara sannyasa and who have clasp rejection. They are the Sankhyas. They practice whatever Sri Krishna declares, and this teaching alone has been endorsed and supported by Bhagwan. In the next slide, the understanding of this verse is, He Anagha, Asmin Loke, Dvividha Nishtha Maya Pura Prokta, Sankhyanam Jnana Yogena Nishtha Bhavati, Yoginam Karma Yogena Nishtha Bhavati. And therefore, in the next slide, we clearly understand the take-home message, which is Shankaracharya explaining that Jnana Yoga is to be practiced by different people, Karma Yoga is to be practiced by a different set of people. The same person cannot practice both at the same time. Jnana Yoga is superior to Karma Yoga, and this statement was clearly made by Arjuna and not refuted by Krishna. Jnana Yoga is to be practiced by the Sankhya Buddhi people, and they are the ones who have either the Bahya Sannyasa or the Antara Sannyasa. While the Karma Yoga is to be practiced by the non-sannyasis or the Grihasthas who do not have either the Bahya Sannyasa or the Antara Sannyasa. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Hearty thanks to all the participants who have joined us for today's session. I thank Dr. Komal Prasad and all our speakers of the day for their excellent presentations. Continuing our study of Kathopanishad, in session 13 on Friday, 2nd February 24th, we shall cover mantras 7 through 12 of Prathama Dhyaya Tritiya Valli. Remember to join us on time and benefit from this enlightening knowledge of Kathopanishad. This brings us to an end of today's program. let us conclude with the Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.